In this video, we're going to be teaching you everything you need to know to become a movement god in Valorant. Having great movement is simultaneously going to make you harder to hit while consistently improving your accuracy, and there's a ton of movement tips and tricks that can give you the leg up on your competition. Now, the first type of movement that we do got to talk about is jumping, and you're probably jumping wrong. There are actually two different jump things that you gotta know if you want to minimize the sound you're making while simultaneously either increasing speed or making it so you gather more information. The first one is the simple silent jump spot. This is where if you're hiding behind a box on a certain site, let's say you're hiding on the back of A site on bind, if you want to gather information, you want to jump over the box, but if there's no one there, you don't want your sound to tell the enemies that you're there. So all you have to do is hold crouch, jump, and then let go of crouch midair. This allows you to gather that information, but then not make any sound. Super useful and something that you should be able to do without thinking about it, so definitely start to practice it right now. The other thing with jumping that you should learn how to do is the sloped bunny hopping. If you hold shift and actually give yourself a little bit of momentum by jumping up sloped surfaces like this surface here on bind, you're going to be able to actually keep some of that momentum and go up faster while also making no sound. So you could really quickly get up to hookah without the enemy team knowing that you're going to get there quite that fast. Now, if you do mess this up though, you will be making noise, so it's really important that you practice it so you don't have to think about it anymore, but it's really useful once you do know it. The next thing that we do need to talk about is the relationship between your movement and your aim, notably counter strafing, or the lack of needing of counter strafing. You see, the concept of counter strafing is you're moving in one direction, and before you start to shoot, you tap the other direction to stop your momentum, and then you're gonna have that first shot accuracy that much faster. But in Valor in particular, whether you just let go of the key or you tap the other key, it doesn't alter your momentum in any meaningful way, which means that you could do either or. Like, there's no penalty to counter strafe, but you don't really need to counter strafe if it's already ingrained in your muscle memory. No problem. A good percentage of pros do counter strafe, but there are also big notable aiming pros that don't, so it really doesn't matter. It's your own personal preference. That being said, especially when you're stopping and looking for an opportunity to hit somebody, one of the things that you need to do to give yourself the best chance of winning gunfights is give yourself time to shoot relative to how safe you are. And I know that doesn't make any sense, so let me explain. Basically, the longer you wait to take that first shot after you're gaining that first shot accuracy, the more likely you are to hit that shot, right? And this just makes sense. You're taking more time, you're lining it up better, you're waiting for a better moment before you shoot. This all makes sense, but oftentimes players will rush a shot right away. They'll see a target, they'll instantly get that first shot accuracy and just start throwing bullets out, even when if they would have waited just a little bit longer, they could have been more accurate. And the thing that you need to identify is, how fast do you need to shoot? As in, how under threat are you? Is that person about to shoot at you? Then you probably need to start the duel faster. But if that person is farther away, maybe they're not looking at you, or maybe they're in a situation where they're shooting at someone else and they're gonna flick to you, you have more time to take that shot, and you don't want to increase your odds of whiffing by trying to force the shot too quickly. The idea here is that every single gun duel, you are evaluating just how fast you have to shoot, and you're giving yourself as much time as you can get away with, and taking extra time when you're not under direct threat so that you can guarantee hitting those first shots when you're first shot accurate and not whiffing because you're trying to rush those shots. Now, having great movement is going to help your aim, and having great aim is going to make your movement all that more impactful. And for everything you need to know to master these things, you got to check out the SkillCapped website, where we have an in-depth movement guide course that teaches you everything you need to know about peeking, crouch spraying, run and gun, when to do certain movement techs, and how to combine that with amazing aim. Everything you need to climb is right there, so just check it out right now in the links down below. Now, the other aim technique that we're going to talk about is actually breaking your opponent's aim by training them to a close angle and swinging wide. And this is super powerful, where you're constantly like jiggling a really tight angle, making it so that an opponent that's holding there is putting their crosshair really close to the wall because they're trying to punish your tight angle swing. And then you do something kind of obscure, like swing really wide, or if you want to do it even further, do something like slide it as neon, or even satchel super wide out, and then the enemy would have to hit a crazy wide flick in order to punish you. and their crosshair's already super close to the wall, because in general people put their crosshair like quite a bit away from the wall so that they could flick inward or flick outward. But once you show them one thing, then they're ready for that thing, and then you mix it up with something else. Super powerful to understand how you and your movement can change how an opponent prepares to take a gunfight, and you could use that against them. The next up, we do gotta talk about using your movement to be evasive during gun duels. If you're in a gunfight and you have like killed one person, you're not crouch spraying, you're just taking a duel, you're shooting someone and you killed them. Oftentimes, whether you hit that small spray or you whiff it, you want to take a couple of steps to the left or the right before you reset your fire and aim. The idea here is that, one, you're going to change your position, so it's harder for an opponent to instantly trade you out, whether it's the second person or it's that first person, because you didn't kill them, you missed your shots, so that you get to reset and you make yourself harder to kill at the same time. And number two, it gives you an opportunity to reset your aim, and you're going to be more mobile while you reset your aim. Because if you just like sit there and spray and you still have a moment before you get that first shot accuracy back after you shot anyways, so might as well make yourself harder to hit in the meantime rather than just standing there and waiting for you to get first shot accuracy back. You're gonna get absolutely destroyed. But something that a lot of people ask is, when do you crouch spray? Like, when is it actually correct to crouch and spray instead of taking bursts and then repositioning and taking bursts and repositioning over and over again? Most of the time, if you do not have a window to actually reposition and you need to spray transfer, then crouching can be actually legitimate. So as an example, you killed one person and then like a jet dashes on you or a race comes on you out of nowhere, and you're just like, oh shit, I don't have the time to step away here because I'm gonna instantly die in this window, and I'm going to try to spray transfer them, but I don't have time to reset my first shot accuracy or anything like that, so I'm going to commit to a spray transfer and a crouch. And I would say while there are a lot of legitimate uses for crouch, most of the time people overuse crouch immensely. It's like, you're probably using crouch way too much in your gunfights, putting you in a situation where you're glued to the floor, easy to trade, and you're not really as light on your feet and capable of taking multiple gun duels at the same time as you would be if you just didn't crouch nearly as much. So keep that in mind. Now, next time we're going to talk about jiggle peeks and jump peeks. Typically, a jiggle is like on the ground where you're just going to really quickly wiggle a corner with your shoulder. Sometimes you're going to see the enemy, but most of the time you're either reacting off of the mini map or just their gunfire. You're trying to bait like an op shot, or you're trying to bait fire, so you gather information with these peaks. Now, a jump peek's a little bit different, where you're going to jump up and out, and then you're going to hold down and back in the direction that you came from when you jumped, and this is going to allow you to like peek over little surfaces, gather a little bit of information, and with this you're typically going to be able to see the enemy and gather that information visually. But I would make it clear that if an enemy knows you're there, I would not jump peek too reliably. Really good aimers and people with fast reaction time can kill you when you're jump peeking, so definitely keep that in mind as well. The next off, we do got to talk about run and gun. When is run and gun correct? Are there times when you actually should be running and gunning, or is it just something that you only do if you just don't have skill? Well, there are legitimate times where running and gunning can give you a strategic advantage, and it really comes down to this. If you have a gun that is actually strong while being mobile, and they have a gun that really wants to take very precise gunfights, then running gunning can actually be good in the right range. Like, here's an example. Let's say the enemy have a sheriff and they want to take a really specific gunfight. They're holding on a corner, they're waiting for you to peek like a rifle peek, like really precise and direct, right? But if you have like even a phantom or a specter, you don't really want to give them the fight that they want to get, right? Because they will win that fight, or they have a chance to win that fight. You would rather give them a very, very difficult fight for them to win. So that could mean completely running across the angle, creating a really close effective range, and using your gun's mobility to just destroy them, because they would have to hit very, very difficult shots, and they don't get to set up the fight in the way they really want to set up the fight. And there's other examples to this, like, you know, you're using even like a Vandal against like a Guardian or something like that. You are fine with utilizing run and gun a bit more if you're in a really close effective range. If you're up against like an Operator, most of the time you don't really want to be precise unless they've already used their shot. You would much rather take a highly mobile, hard to hit engagement from close range. So there are moments in time where run and gun can be useful, but I want to make this clear. Don't run away, pun intended, to run and gun when you can't aim. this is not the way to get better. And it's a slippery slope where if you start running and gunning against people and you're like, oh, I can actually abuse people with running and gunning, and then you're just doing it all the time. You're just running and gunning here and there and everywhere. You might even gain some rank, but you're not developing your skills, and then eventually you're going to run into players that are still going to be able to shut you down unless you only run and gun in optimal situations. And because you're running and gunning all the time, you didn't learn, you didn't improve, and now you're going to just be stuck there where you're really not good enough to compete at that rank anymore. And yeah, you're basically going to artificially inflate your elo for what? To just be stuck and not be able to actually climb anymore or be good enough to compete anymore at that rank? Not a great way to improve, in my opinion. But next up, let's talk about when to run and when to walk, because that's part of movement, is giving away information. And there are times when you want to just book it and run to the point where you're rotating, going to the other side. But it's really important that you anticipate where an enemy could be. You have that mini map with the circle. It's going to tell you how far your sound stretches, and it's important to anticipate or understand where an enemy would be based on where they were, and when you have to cut noise so that they don't know where you are. It's a balance that does take a bit of game sense, and there's going to be some trial and error because enemies could be lurking, could be rotating early. Where part of getting better is trying to min-max your time, which means that if you're walking when you actually could run with no penalty because no one could hear you anyways, you're just wasting those valuable seconds. And it's important to kind of push those bounds and experiment a bit. Even if you're going to mess up a bit, that's perfectly fine. It's still something to keep in mind. Now, the last thing is the hardest thing to master with movement, because while I've given you a lot of tips about movement in this video, a big part of movement is map knowledge and map mastery, and being able to execute a lot of these movement things while not having visual information, aka walking backwards or being blind. And you see this all the time where you're blinded and then you think you're going one place, and then when you're unblinded, you're like standing in the middle of the map and you're like, oh shit, I'm dead, right? So it's really important to master this stuff, and this is not something that's going to be easy. It's going to take time, but being able to navigate through certain areas on the map backwards so that you don't have to look and do it, or being able to navigate while you're blind, these things are going to set you up for better engagements, post flashes, and situations where you're going to be able to clutch up in a way that you wouldn't otherwise be able to. Of course, the only way to get good at this is by repetition and really trying to learn the map. Don't just autopilot. Never autopilot your gameplay. Try to absorb it in so that when you think about ascent, you like know that map as well as you know your own damn bedroom, and then you're good, right? So anyways, I hope that you learned something in this video, but if you have any questions, definitely let us know. But before you go, a quick word from SkillCapped. Alright though guys, before we wrap this up, let me tell you a little bit more about SkillCapped. So we offer a 5-division rank up guarantee, and that's a pretty crazy thing to offer. It's like a gym membership guaranteeing you'll get ripped. Your local gym would go bust if they offered that. Not us. We've offered this for years because our service really works. It works so well, in fact, that we're able to produce by far the largest catalog of premium Valorant guides on the internet. We add new courses every month with over 1,000 guides curated into 50 courses no one can compare. We also have a direct line of communication with subscribers in our Discord so that you can get connected immediately to some of the best players in the game who will respond to any and all questions asked. Sign up today for as little as $6.99 a month if you are serious about improving. So that's gonna be all for this one today. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.